Good morning, Alan. Are we live?
We are live.
I think we are live. I think we lost Alan. Alan, you're on, but I can't hear you anymore.
I can see Alan.
In fact, Alan, I'll just start if you don't mind. And Alan, I'll just expect that you'll be trying to reconnect. So thank you for joining this panel that's hosted by DevOps.com and Alan Schimmel. And joining us are the DevOps Enterprise London Programming Committee of subsets. So we have Ben Grinnell from North Highland and myself. And so the goal is really to talk about some of the programming objectives that we had for DevOps Enterprise London, which is coming up on June 5th and June 6th at the QE2 Center in Westminster. So over the next 20-25 minutes, we're going to be sharing about some of our objectives that we had as we programmed the second year of the DevOps Enterprise Conference, as well as talk about some of the things that we're both most excited about. And Ben, I don't think I'm overstating the case when I say that the programming committee meetings, in terms of selecting the talks, at one point were throughout the whole part, especially near the end, were heated, anguished, as we had very lengthy discussions about how do we make this the conference that we want. Ben, can you comment on that?
Yeah, it was a great problem to have. Too many good talks that we wanted to include, each with a unique angle, and us all backing different ones. And well, even if I'd had my fair share, I still couldn't have picked the right ones to include and ones to exclude. So there were just too many. So
and I think that was
everyone.
The place that we ended up was that we felt like at this point there were no bad decisions. So I think that's a great place to be, as you said. So why don't we start with introductions? Ben, can you introduce yourself? We've known each other for many years, and we've been working together for 2 years around the program for DevOps Enterprise London.
Yes. So I started a management consultancy about 12 years ago, building IT capability for some of our big clients, and that's led on to modernizing and growing that. I now lead technology and digital for North Highland, and we've got 300 people in London and about 1,500 in the States. So it's grown fairly big, but it's been fantastic riding the wave of building new IT capability in the big organizations that we typically serve.
That's awesome. In fact, I really want to acknowledge Ben's contribution to the DevOps Enterprise London program, especially in year one, where we were really leveraging the program committee's network in terms of people, colleagues they've met who are doing these heroic things in large, complex organizations. So thank you, Ben. I genuinely appreciate it.
Yes. Hey, Gene, this is Alan. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Absolutely. We're just getting through introductions.
Woo, I feel like a hacker.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, go ahead. So, guys, I was listening while I was fixing the audio problems. And Ben, you know what? I've had the pleasure of interviewing several members of the programming committee, and you know, Gene thanked you, but you know, beyond thanking, I don't know if the audience in general really knows the almost thankless job that you guys undertake. I mean, if I remember correctly, there were hundreds of potential submissions to speak at this year's Does London event, wasn't there?
Yeah, there were a huge amount to go through. So they're all great. I mean, I loved reading them. So it's always good to find out how others are succeeding and how they're failing too.
And Gene, what is it? I think we wound up with 30 or 40 sessions, something in that range.
Yeah, 28, 29 sessions.
Yeah. So there was a big winnowing process, you know, and the program committee, I mean, that's a tremendous job to have to do that, because I'm sure there were some fantastic submissions that didn't make it.
Yeah, I think the big one of the big kind of surprises was that you know, I think given the evidence points that the first year of the conference was able to put out, we did get just a significantly more submissions from large, complex organizations, and so we really did whatever it took, made some I think kind of decision internally, like, all right, how do we make room for those talks? Yeah, I'm pleased. In fact, can I tell you about one particular dimension that I'm really pleased about is that even though we wanted to get as many new stories told, I'm really tickled by the fact that we have so many people presenting for the second time, so that
the third time.
well, actually, this is a London conference, right? This is formally two times. Yeah. So one of them is Jonathan Fletcher, who was actually promoted to be the CTO of Hiscox. We have Jason Cox from Disney, as you actually mentioned, right? He's actually presented for every year in the U.S. as well. Robert Shearer from the Swiss Stock Exchange, SIX. Tom Clark from ITV, who's actually had expanded responsibility as well in terms of his estate expanded from just the Linux environments to also include Windows. So it's exciting to see so many of these organizations coming back and presenting the continuation of their journey. Hey, it's our other program committee member, Damon. Edwards.
Hey, Damon. I think Damon might still be on mute. He'll be joining us, I guess, here in a moment. Damon?
Yeah. Sorry, I was so busy working on the programming schedule that I.
Okay, we'll go with that, David. Just join in.
I am here to serve.
Okay, but gee, and Damon and Ben, I mean, you hit on something that is, I think, goes to the heart of what makes DOES it's kind of a special event, and that is the reoccurring stories, right? DevOps isn't that new or that old a movement. And we've been able, almost like in a documentary film or a reality TV, to follow, right? Follow some of our favorite characters. No one's been voted off the island, I hope. But we've seen the evolution, the growth, the expansion of their domains, or whatever you want to call it, the metastasizing of DevOps, right? Especially when we look at like Target, the people who really helped start that Target DevOps movement and moved on to other organizations and spreading that gospel. Gene, you mentioned a few, but Ben, Damon, you guys have been at DOES events before. Who are some of your favorite returning speakers, and who are you interested in saying, hey, what have they done since last year?
Well, I always love hearing from Jane Cox at Disney, and I think what's common with all the returning speakers is you listen to their talk from last year, and at the end they highlight a couple of things they've still got to go and a couple of problems they've still got. And you think, well, they've made so much progress, yeah, they're going to make a great amount more progress. And then they come back the next year and there's a whole host of new things that they've had to tackle. And it's always a great, you always think someone's done it and they've made it. And actually people get stuck quite often in the journey, and hearing how they get unstuck, I think is the most valuable bit. So those returning speakers, they're not the same story. It's always a different reason they got stuck and a different way they found them unblocking it. And that I find hugely valuable. And their scope's expanded so much in the meantime. It's huge.
Yeah, I'm going to sidestep picking favorites because I know you want us to. But what I am going to say though is that what I think is very unique about the stories is something that was just said, which is you hear where people are stuck. Right? I think a lot of conferences you get the pretty end picture, right? Or somebody kind of lecturing you on a topic. But I think what's kind of fascinating about this crowd is you have big, very public companies telling you where they have problems and where things haven't worked for them and where their struggles and pain have been, and also where things are incomplete, right? I think that is life in the enterprise, right? That is the different thing. You can't just snap your fingers and change, 500, 2,000, person organizations. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be false starts. There's going to be things that we're still not as good at. And I think what's pretty cool about DOES is people really focus on the journey. And I think the best speakers, the ones we often invite back, are the ones that don't tell just all the good stuff. They tell all the bad stuff and where things are going wrong. So I think that's a unique thing you get. I think people tell us they find that very, very helpful because that reflects the reality of their life.
Damon, by the way, could you introduce yourself as well? Oh, sorry. Ben, after Ben goes, Damon, introduce yourself, and just because maybe not everyone knows who this faceless voice is.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I was just going to build on Damon's point there, which is those returning journeys are key, because a lot of my clients who are just starting the journey tell me, well, what does the end look like? What's it look like when I'm done? all these organizations coming and telling a story and saying we're not done because there is no end to that journey is quite powerful, because I think people often want the answer and it's like, no, you need to be happy with the right direction.
Right, right, exactly. Or just to add on on top of what Ben said, they often feel like, we're just not making the progress that we expected, and then they realize that, hey, actually, they are making progress, and they're being real about it, and that's kind of all you can hope for. And you see it over 1, 2, 3 years. It feels like slow progress at first, really becomes quite groundbreaking and huge in the end. Who I am? I'm Damon Edwards. I'm the co-founders of Rundeck. Previous life was the managing partner of DTO Solutions. I guess we were a shoulder to cry on for a lot of big enterprises who were trying to start their DevOps journey. We were like DevOps operations improvement consultants, helping large organizations to kind of transport the high-flying unicorn DevOps techniques to large enterprises. And now on the Rundeck side, I'm more on the operational tooling side, but we're still focused heavily on the ops end of the DevOps transformation.
Thanks, Damon. Guys, I want to, before we move to our next question, there are just 2 points there that I'd really like to emphasize for our audience. Number one, that your DevOps journey is truly never done. And number 2, that not all DevOps initiatives are wildly successful or even moderately successful. And sometimes we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. and that's part of the story of DevOps Enterprise Summit, Gene. I think it's something you've tried to incorporate from the very first one in San Francisco, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I heard this very funny little slogan apparently at a large bank. They said, "Fail is not wrong. Fail is just an acronym for first attempt in learning."
Exactly. We learned more from it. But guys, I'd like to move on because we are limited with time. But it's great hearing from old friends who come back and tell us where they are from the previous year or even years prior to that. But we have some first-time speakers coming to London too, don't we? On the program committee, of course, you guys know that. Without playing favorites, Damon, can you just give our audience a little bit of a preview of who some first-time speakers might be?
And I can go first, Damon, if you want.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Gene.
Yeah,
I try to play neutral.
right. By the way, I love all the talks. I mean, each one of those speakers, they survived a very competitive discussion about which talks were. But the ones that really intrigued me the most, that I'm looking forward to hearing the stories, is Andrea Herzl-Jager. She's from Allianz. This is the German insurance company. So this is almost 2 strikes against the enterprise, right? It's like German 100-plus-year-old companies, and it's an insurance company, not known for risk taking. And to hear about their journey that really started from this need to get mobile apps, into the market, and her being in a position to be able to say, we're your only hope, right? We're the only way that you can get something into the market, within months as opposed to years. We have Daniela Romano from ING. Last year we heard from Ron van Caminada, the CIO of ING Bank. Widely admired organization. And so this is someone that's on his team that's really helping create a shared service to help keep every one of those 7,000 engineers productive, as if they were at a Google, Amazon, or Facebook. Kind of a talk that we're bringing to London from the United States is Robin Yemen and Suzette Johnson. They're both technical fellows at Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. So these are in the defense contracting space. I love these talks because it's another these very structured U.S. federal procurement programs, often within the Department of Defense, are highly structured, dictate kind of how work is done. The fact that they've been able to do agile DevOps transformations within those, often having to work with partners and competitors. You'll notice that Robin and Suzette are from competing organizations. It's I think brings in a very interesting story in and of itself. So, and another one that's coming back is the presentation from the team at Ingenico. This is both at Ingenico proper as well as Accenture, talking about their mammoth software transformation around the payment processing infrastructure, of which they're market leaders. So those are some of the ones that I'm specifically looking forward to.
Fantastic. Ben, Damon, any additional new first-time speakers that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm interested about the ING talk. It's a first-time speaker, but it's kind of a continuation of their story. I said before, like, they're one of those companies that's been, it's very high profile, and they've been very, naked or open with what they're with what they're doing. And we've heard from, some kind of, middle managers. We've heard from, a CIO, and, now we've got another senior leader speaking. So it'd be very interesting to see sort of a fresh take on a story that's, somewhat familiar to people who attended before, but, a whole different area.
Absolutely. Ben, yourself?
Yeah, the conference is taking place in the QE2, which is in the middle of Whitehall. And it's a really exciting place to be at the moment because obviously we've had some interesting politics and we've got an election coming up. So I can't talk too much about them, but there are a couple of speakers from the public sector who I think are going to be really insightful. And they're really, they're joining a group of speakers who are really talking about, really big challenging problems with 10 years and billion lines of code and big mainframes and everything else. So there's people who you wouldn't expect to see at a DevOps conference or even starting that journey who have made significant progress. So I won't mention any names, but they're going to be really exciting talks.
And if I can add something about why the government speakers are interesting, because a lot of folks might say, well, we're a regular company, right? We're not a government organization. So what does it have to do with us? And what's fascinating is their bureaucracy is often in law, right? It's the code, it's the law of the land, how you bid on contracts, how you structure things, how you account for things, what processes you have to follow, what checks and reports you have to give. So unlike companies that sort of tend to hide or gloss over a lot of their bureaucracy, it's very much on the table. And it's fascinating to hear because, they have to deal with the same challenges that we do, except it's a lot more on the surface, I guess you would say. So it's a great petri dish or case study to look at, how do you work within bureaucracy? How do you deal with new funding models? How do you make the people, how do you convince people outside of our domain to, to approve or to go with this kind of transformation? So it's surprisingly relevant and a great take on the problems that all large organizations have.
Ben, I have a question for you. We have three kind of amazing government stories that we're kind of anxious to find out whether they can present or not due to the special events happening right now. But in the U.S., we have a saying, right? As a government official, a government executive, the last thing you want to do is testify in front of Congress explaining why something went wrong. What's the equivalent in the UK?
It's the Public Accounts Committee. So you get hauled in front of the Public Accounts Committee and you're probably on TV at that point. And a channel that not many people watch, to be fair, but just sitting there being grilled by about 20 other people. So that's not fun.
Yeah. But guys, I will tell you, I spent significant amounts of time working with the government. And sometimes when it comes to software, when it comes to technology, you'd be surprised. They'll surprise you, and they will take the initiative, and they will sort of lead the private sector if it makes sense. They don't move fast generally, but not all government is necessarily slow or bad. But Gene, back to your point, and Damon, we talked about companies like ING and Alliance and these large financial services and insurance companies. It doesn't come any more conservative than those companies. But it's not just the fact that they're adopting DevOps and they're doing these things to be competitive in the market. I find what's more fascinating is that they're willing to talk about it. Typically, they're very tight-lipped, right? They don't open the kimono, so to speak. And kudos to Gene and the programming committee for bringing in these people who do open the kimono and do give us a look at a company like ING or Alliance Insurance, or I think last year was Her Majesty's Tax Services or Revenue Service, the equivalent of the IRS. Fascinating that they would be open enough to share their transformation stories with us.
I think that's really important because I work with a lot of the legal sector, the finance sector, and some of those really restrictive sectors. And the thing I find is that even if a company is doing quite well and transforming itself, they will place restrictions on their suppliers that stop them doing it. And so by publicizing some of these success stories, we're actually giving because they all supply each other and they hold each other back. But by giving them some ammo to fight each other in those relationships, I think we can make some progress across the whole industry. Because I've got legal clients who have loads of banks and they say, well, we can't put anything in the cloud because the banks won't let us. I'm like, well, the banks are doing it.
Yeah. So do as I say, not as I do. Guys, I want to keep us moving because time is short. So I'd like to open another area of discussion, and that is, I understand we have some new formats that the program committee will be introducing this year for London, other than the kind of typical sessions and some of the other innovative stuff we've seen over the years. What's new for this year in that regard?
Yeah, I think there's two formats. One that we introduced in San Francisco last year in San Francisco, and then one that is all new. So the first one is the Lean Coffee DevOps Workshop format. I mean, I think one of the things that we've all talked about as a programming committee is just the value that is created when we can connect attendee to attendee, not just speaker to attendee, but just there's a to create a network where everyone's able to help each other. And so the DevOps workshop format is kind of a very structured session, a time box to get like-minded people working on the same problem, working in sort of a time-boxed way where everybody actually can speak, right? Because everything's time-boxed, and we actually have artifacts for each one. In San Francisco, that was almost standing room only in the 4 sessions that we did. So we'll be doing 2 of those. Another thing that I think is professional conference goers that we all share as a program committee is this frustration with sort of the Q&A format, the question and answer format for talks. Either you have people sort of on a mic asking questions that waste people's time, or you have queues that form and you're in the back of a line of 20 people. So we thought, maybe we can create a better format. So we created something called the Ask the Speaker session, where during an hour session, we're asking all the plenary speakers to go to a room and then basically have an open Q&A session in front of everybody. So we can maximize those interactions and learnings. Damon, Ben, we spent weeks wrangling over the mechanics of both of these. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I think it's the first thing you said, right? Which is the value. If you look at our attendee list, right, you're like, wow, like the value in the room is equal to or greater than the value that people are talking from the stage. And we really heard that. Why do people come time and time again to any of the DOES conferences? It's because of the people they meet, right? They want to be within their peers and talk to people who are either ahead of them or even behind them to kind of replay what they did to see, sort of hear it again a second time. So these formats we're introducing are really all about that facilitated networking, right? To really get the conversations going, help people connect, meet like-minded folks, have the deeper conversations. And then, this is a great starting point. And then, they can continue them if they want, in the hallways, as over lunch, over drinks, whatever, as the event goes on. So it's really about raising the value for all the attendees and helping them make those connections and discover who's around them.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think that bit with the Ask the Speaker session is going to be quite powerful, because I've seen, we're British, we're very good at queuing, and you end up with a long queue for the speaker and someone hogging their time, and then you're missing half the next session. So solving that problem is a must for us.
Excellent. Good point. Q reminds me of Wimbledon from last year's London DevOps event. Anyway, let's move on to the next question, folks. And, yes, we've been looking forward to what's to come in June in London this year, but let's talk a little bit about lessons learned from past DevOps Enterprise Summits, maybe things we can share with our audience. All 3 of you are deeply immersed in this. Gene, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off again, what are some of your favorite lessons learned from past DevOps Enterprise Summits?
Yeah, I guess over 3 years, going to year 4, it's just this suspicion and then this proof that it really takes a courageous leader to be driving these type of transformations. And to the point where all of them, I think, were politically savvy enough to get some degree of air cover, but every one of them at some point in their journey wildly exceeded the air cover that they were given. So, essentially putting themselves in some degree of personal jeopardy. And it's just that level of clarity and conviction of, how important this mission is, for the organization is something that I always find very humbling and inspiring. We actually did this study. In fact, Dr. Steve Maynor will be presenting his findings. This concept called transformational leadership. That when he talked about it, I mean, my jaw dropped, because I think he really described precisely all the traits that we saw in the DevOps Enterprise community. So we had about 80 people take this multi-factor leadership questionnaire, and it really is true. The hypothesis was confirmed that each one of them self-identified as transformational leaders, and that was just really great to see. So I think that was it says that leadership does matter. You can do it without great leadership, but it's much, much harder. In fact, we're going to have some interesting findings at the DevOps Enterprise. In fact, by the way, the 2017 State of DevOps report, the findings will be presented at the conference.
by Jez Humble and Dr. Nicole Forsgren of Dora.
Right, and myself. And so, yeah, the findings are amazing this year.
Wait, is that a scoop, Gene? Are you going to be on the stage too with Jez and Nicole?
It's going to be awesome.
Okay. They didn't tell me. They said it was just those two, but fantastic. So you heard it here first. Guys, we only have literally a few minutes left, and I wanted to just kind of conclude and give Gene the last word. It's his enterprise event. June 5th and 6th in London. I think Ben mentioned it's at the QE2 Conference Center, which is in the Whitehall Street section. But Gene, why don't you take a minute or two, or a minute and a half, and tell our audience of anything else that they may need to know.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you've been hearing this whole morning about the great programming that we've set up, and as important are the amazing other fellow attendees. The average, these are all technology leaders, and who have as much to contribute as anyone who's on the stage. That much I have confidence about, given going into our fourth year of the conference. The speaker list is live, the agenda is live, and we have a special discount code, Deep Dive 20. So presumably that's a 20% discount of the ticket. So be sure to register, as the discount code does expire tomorrow on the 3rd of May. So I'm super excited. I'd love just maybe one last closing word about what you're excited about, Ben and Damon, and then I'll turn it over to you, Alan.
Okay. Ben, why don't you go first?
I'm really excited to hear some of the ways people have scaled it. I think one of the things I appreciate so much is you've got a lot of people, not just identified leaders, that understood it's a big cultural transformation, and the way some of those scales in big companies is really good to hear.
Absolutely. Damon, how about you?
I'm excited about the people taking the next step, right? I think we've heard a lot about POCs, a lot of pilots last year, and I think a lot of the folks that we have coming back, and a lot of the new speakers as well, are really talking about, okay, we tried a little here, we tried a little there, we got our bearings, now we're going to go for it. So I'm excited about hearing about these companies taking the leap, and what worked and what didn't, and what they're doing next.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm excited for another does. It's such an incredible bonanza and high for me to just be in one area where there's so many people talking about DevOps, and I just listen, learn, and try to soak up as much as I can. So, and I'm sure this does London, again, it's June 5th and 6th, will be no different, and really looking forward to it. Ben, Damon, thanks for appearing on today's Google Hangout, but more importantly, thanks for the hours you guys put in on the programming committee. This wouldn't be an event without people like you on the programming committee. So really heartfelt thanks from, I know Gene thanked you, but from the public at large, let me be the spokesperson. Thank you. Gene, thank you for all you do with this, man. I know it's kind of taken over your life, but it's good work, man. And there's you're doing good stuff with it. And I think everyone acknowledges that. But thank you for everything you're doing with DOES. I don't think we would have a DevOps movement the way we do, and some of the other things that come with it, without tireless work on your end as well. So thank you. Thanks for appearing today. Guys, I hope the next time you see me is in London, June 5th and 6th, QE2 Conference Center. Remember, if you register by tomorrow, use Deep Dive 20 as a special discount code to save 20% on your DOES registrations. Damon, Ben, Gene, thanks for coming and joining us today. Thank you if you're watching this out on YouTube. See you in London. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com.